Hello, this is Critical America and World. Before anyone was born, there was a breaching organized crime method using human fact-shaping nature that was entrenched in America. Thank God. It was already entrenched in the other modern nations that were involved with it. So where and as and how, so where and how there are sense and sensibilities, pretending, even though appearing real, and even though juxtaposed with real motivations, nature's needs, interest, to be naive collusion, pretending other through administrations, since before our founding. About and as rolls with that entrenched to all locations, states, and areas. All database relationships, private, formal, other, inter-campuses at the same time, with overt criminal enterprises, and with one bonding that even worse. And as all the modern nations, as identities of the sciences individually grouped and together, regardless homeschool or not, whatever. Data, reception and uses. Uses of word/value, all of them. Like data. Like problems. Like perfection. There is a perfect world. And it is not the defense where and how. Only people originally instilled that are going to use passions and emotions dishonestly. It has one concept with physical delusions, therefore. Because the passions and emotions have a relationship to 5 identities of sequence nature that are simultaneous with each individual. As the value of each group difference. As the value of the species difference, positive or negative, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, those 3 separate but shared identities of volume, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, in demonstration of this. Just as the cell nucleus is a distinct entity from the cell body and from the cell wall, but together they are the cell. They are the value as to from, while being as, with, and for itself, that which the other cells in its cell walls, share as the parts of its physically manifest body. Note how cells, how living cells and how plant cells are manifest. Look how math is manifest with nucleus. With an identity of relationship to all parts of space, nature that has nothing to do with math alone. While it is valued distinctly onto the individual identity of math, grouped in together, the algorithm as correlation nature, as nature as identity. It is a simultaneous identity of relationship to what is positive and negative, and to itself as a relationship to one identity of value progression's identity of relationship to itself that completes. Where negative value nature, the greater the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, the easier it becomes to discern the exploitation of positive and novel identities. Since founding in America, pounding drums, not one person has been allowed logic that is not criminal, foreign influenced, and delusions, raw, to allowed to use correlation where and how. When they put people into types of rights, For example, with the coronavirus, the media, the doctors, and the interbranch identities of the law are many ways still in collusion, blaming other things other than themselves for the real causes of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures onto all locations, let alone our most exploited, from left worse than forsaken relationships to identity of the ground, tactically denatured specifically to cause negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, specifically to have all roles as victim predators, as victims, needing to seek the pathology of positive, naturally, but now through systems and as identities of jobs and titles, colonists A through Z, citizens A through Z, Native Americans A through Z, all forced entertained as what you can't entertain and afford the free speech of simple sentences per all that is actually discernible per the algorithm of correlation nature. Which nature, this is identities algorithm, correlation nature, is an increasing identity of volume, self-valued by modern nations as identities of criminal insidiousness nature. They have this breaching method sickly upon them, needing to react to it as the real causes of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures. But the way it was entrenched, the way it operates, keeps self-value. Roles with fact-cheaping nature styles propagated. Therefore, effectively, easily maintained, self-cultivated. Propagated needing to hide lie progressions in relationship to each database relationship, each identity of the law. Standing manifest identities of treatments of their identity, individually grouped and together. Backed into defenses of that as fact-cheaping nature, in other words, that they can't defend. And afford a correlation nature, each position of it. They have to pretend passions and emotions to branch, interside, interlocations, originally and still, when it comes to the identity of correlation nature. That is the answer /S to why and how we have shootings in the north end of Hartford through time. It is recorded inseparable from Wethersfield, a suburb just south of it, intercities, interbranch, intermilitary, whole bunch of other nations. This is an organized crime method that new modern nations, hundreds of nations, A1 through Z, however many nations there are, they were going to be defending and roles individually grouped in together as victims to so much, times, positions, and something like that. They would have to react to it as fact-cheaping nature. And as fact-cheaping nature, needing to react as knaves in not knowing how to react properly, not by accident. In the course of that, not by accident, they have to blame the real causes of the negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, which they don't understand, which is tied to the identity of the ground relationship, which is tied to another method of sorting and of sequence shift roles and with database relationships that were employed, not just with black, with crazy database relationships. If you're black, this is against everybody. Sickly, distinctly against people who have more pigment, so they could keep how sickly, non-distinctly. No one allowed free speech to demonstrate that breaching screen roles, needs, and natures as criminal and serious natures, everyone's opinion, regardless of what color you are. Preventing free speech. This is what is recorded, preventing the sequence shifts from being told on. Preventing actual human slavery from being demonstrated. The roles with it. more important than voting is to have mandated law followed, the nature of the law. See, but the branches of government individually grouped and together were backed into criminally foreign influence, evidence reception, criminal racketeering, worse than that. And lie progressions from that. But right back to all the identity of the ground locations, where they are semi-overtly and criminally foreign influenced. That is further where they're influencing people to hide that. Where they're using and having used investigations and investigators and the identities of FBI, CIA, the equivalents that were there since our founders. What they actually declared. We need to have free speech defended. But there's an entrenched organized crime method with database relationships that was preventing it then and now. We need to liberate a quality of fact-cheating nature capable of countering fact-cheating nature organized crime. And when I say nature, this is in relationship to the algorithm of correlation nature. That is the identity of the grounds. Relationship to ourselves and database. This is a database organized crime method that involved the stewards of databases since before computers. All victims. They keep victim predators. Because this is the victim where we could only discern the actually recorded breaching method and speak about it and understand it and use correlation with it if we have free speech. So offensively, they already had and have all kinds of other identity of the ground relationships to time treatments and to sequence shifts maintain self-value. For all that actually too at once with the uses of investigations and investigators, tall locations. Again, simultaneously already having used and using their identities, already have their opinions about the integrity of each branch's titles. But they need to sequence shift to get it because they can't follow the logic of that. It's delusions raw, and they're using criminally foreign influenced premises treatments. Criminally foreign influenced mass fake sides of correlation nature's Trinity. Methods and natures and styles of logic. Uses of words like data, like problems, like time, like identity, like databases, all those used criminally by everyone. So then they make overall allegations against us, pretend we're saying things about people, oh, people aren't good or bad, with physical delusions, which is aggressions. Oh, but you're the one saying negative things about people. You know, if there was someone to communicate with, they forge names, switch names, interbranch, all private tied to them. And again, with overt criminal enterprises and the witness protection program. They have you guys all, how could this be, how could such be, it's recorded clear as day, simultaneously, overtly, and insidiously, what actually causes and self-values the murders and the murderers and roles with the creation of them, while simultaneously pretending other, in relationship to the simultaneously self-valued job narratives. It's all right, you want to pretend you have an opinion about jobs and about voting and about all these concepts. Don't leave out sequence shifts. Don't leave out exceptions and exception nature. We have the same drawn out. Who invented algebra? Wait till I do a video on this. God is an algebraic variable. Ancients realized you have to understand this as the body of God is one identity of invisible but still discernible identity of volume. Its identity is also there, which is bigger than its body, the same way, and is lesser than its body. The same way our identities are bigger and less than many ways. All exceptions in exception nature are a demonstration of how our identity is bigger than and less than the three parts of ourselves. For example. So this is an invisible body of value discernment system, life. Why and how the Trinity is manifest with the cell bodies, cell nuclear cell wall, shared walls. Shared cells with the shared cell walls is the body of value. Water, not just water and gases in their proper mixture coming through plants. Why and how is the value of that to us? Not just to us. One identity of volume will only increase as the phenomenon of that manifests as the perfect value nature system. So we have all true perfection and positive, and all that can be used to maintain narratives confined away from perfection's proper responses to all that is imperfect. For example, the uses of words, values like PPE, personal protection equipment, medical professionals, further uses of slope, and the nature of the law, as criminal and CCSU nature is denied. For example, where they're measuring problem, how to get out of the problem, and the sequence of what to do. They've been leaving out how they've been left their databases, the people associated with them, foreign and domestic. This has been since before our founding parents were even born. That was sophistication, breaching method here, before they could even semi-counter extort that which they had to leave within slavery, north and south entrenched. Only a counter-knave to overcome slavery method and a prayer was left to counter that which would prevent the surface values of the Constitution simultaneously while pretending other for breaching screen, breaching method, breaching tools, breaching weapons roles, needing conflicts with other nations because they also simultaneously need to pretend to be against such because of their positive and negative treatments, because of their identity treatments. So there are people recorded now involved who are with agencies. Their family members, they work with like AT&T and stuff like that. And AT&T is nothing personal. It's not your guy's fault. That's why it's important to stay on the specific acts and sequence shifts and uses of names and forging names and switching names into branch. Now it's necessary to understand that and how. Hundreds of nations that are natives need to have means to peacefully counter each other, all the negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures they commit against each other as fact treatment nature. And as identities of relationship and roles with all that physically manifests, not just like wars, all the chemical germs, threats, everything is weaponized. Was/is weaponized. That's part of what is evolved with which causes the shootings consciously, maintains them the outcome. That which was sick as clear as day, simultaneously, insidiously, since founding, self-valued, which is discernible in relationship to where and how, they blame on other things, others themselves, which is actually recorded. The real cause of negative value nature, progressions, action natures, recorded, bonded, leveraged against each location sickly, distinctly. and as a method recorded effectively, having kept how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. And that's self-value through other motivations, nature needs interest to that, because everyone's are using everyone's identities. Oh, Russia did this. People from these nations are roles with private identities, the identities of each branch of government, each identity of its body, individually grouped and together, manifest as lie, progression, cover-up natures of styles of liars, while simultaneously pretending other. They recorded sequence shift while they pretend to say other. They say, like, in other words, because when you go into branch, they've put fake audio and fake video since founding. They've been stacking their own databases with other nations. Not by accident, right when, all the time, constantly, we have fact-cheating nature disputes that they call peaceful. Because the counter is overtly sick, like war and things like that. And because each of the nations individually grouped together self-value the obfuscation of the Trinity. So they have, for example, Boolean logic, yes, no, with exception and exception nature. Its method with science, by the identity the sciences share from being used. They want people to have debates and disputes with each other, and then make defenses of passions and emotions. They have everyone tactically pseudo-educated, self-valued that. Because of the method of sustained child abuse that is on off each age of nature of campus. It's also clear as day identity theft, fraud, and worse than war crimes. Simple identity racketeering method using human fact treatment nature again as identity. So, when people ask for response, like for example, there is a Darren involved with East Hartford, people that are associated with New Britain Court. And he's in East Hartford. He's also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with interbranch from my town and on my street, involved with a recorded pattern of evident uses of investigators and investigations to hide their life progressions, to hide their uses of the sense and sensibilities of boys and girls and of men and women, and in relationship to the uses of names and preventing people from knowing the names. As the Dillon family is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with my new and past neighbors, with children programs, including with agencies and agents and judges and prosecutors and their family members, involved with narratives, predicate acts, wire crime, mail crimes, interbranch ones, tied to their narratives when they're pretending to perceive things naturally, when they're being asked by other investigators and investigations. All investigations are recorded per correlation nature, criminally foreign influenced and delusions wrought in that self-value. As identity /S that can't defend themselves and afford identity's actual science to have its words and use by the perfect world that really makes algebra's formulas, math's formulas work. Correlation nature's identity, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that only increasing. Is where value is nature and nature is value simultaneously, with a slash between it also as a simultaneous identity of volume, as a quality of diffusion as life is, as temporary positive that can be positive or negative as temporary positive. Temporary positive force that was already made. We're making more of what is already made. As forever nature. We are qualities of diffusion as itself, as its positive or negative identity of relationship to itself. Now the breaching organized crime method understood this, because the ancients revealed logic, revealed algebra before criminally foreign influence sciences. Criminally foreign influence identity, the ground, relationships, roles, sciences, live aggressions from that self-value, each age of fact, cheating nature, sickly, hurt from correlation, nature's means. So, with sequence true, and with the order of the finite, active and progressive, and identity's actual system of value/value progression / simultaneous nature. That, again, which is positive or negative to itself. Negative is in demonstration of where and how the perfect world can only stay temporary, but it can be it can't help but be lasting too. All exception and exception nature and demonstration like that. For example, such as Leith of Hadith, for space nature transfer. Per me, data will tell you other, because recorded self-valued since semi-ancient times. For example, when they give the history on algebra, the humanity worked together using how we are individually grouped in together, species, body, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. So we can see its distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous identity of relationship to itself. That body of volume bigger than while as time. Control your mind. Just as the identity of the hardware of a computer is. Chopping up the moments in time. The milliseconds. Putting, and all their identities in relationship to that shared identity of volume, which is only increasing. And that keeps changing its identity of relationship to itself. And the value of that keeps increasing, because that's how everything works, which is identity as nature. Identity of value. So, it's all right if people, not only do we have fake news, and you guys, I'm big support, we need news. These are people starting fights with us. And you guys are letting them, pretending you don't realize. So, for example, they also have passive aggression involved with identity thefts, frauds, and racketeering people. With sequence shifts also. With locations tied to the people with the interbranch and private and overt criminal enterprises, sequence shifting, forging names and switching names. Again, with many tied to a Dillon family, and with Wethersfield town officers, foreign and domestic, and people around the Samuel Dix house, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with doctors involved with child sex offenders on off campuses with them further, and interbranch. They have the women roles with such through time, originally and still. This is recorded how they don't let this method of correlation that uses how the nature is value as nature of women is distinct from men simultaneously. And the value of that, which is neutral to itself but still has both simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, again, in demonstration of the actual identity of value progression that generated /S everything. Boxing. So names are used by an organized crime method that has sense and sensibilities used. Using Jane Austen's phrase, but per which she was child abused. And with conjunctions to it through her whole life. As everyone's was. Which is recorded in many ways. Well, right, people wanted to debate it. Part of the evidence is how mandated laws prevented while they are simultaneously stacking roles with locations, areas, and states' worst crimes and criminals. The same people with those words and crimes pretending to be against it. Everyone's really against it, so it's easy for them to pretend to be. Interbranch, but they have roles with the worst killers and body dumping spots. Not just criminals. Principal child offenders campus. Involved with the sequence shifts are also relevant and uses of people's sense and sensibilities. Well, I'm asking you to follow mandated law. The interbranch will say, oh, I don't know about that, I'm just dealing with this. And they're doing that, in other words, criminally. Everyone's speaking through others criminally. They're putting fake recorded audio and video about the wire crime rules, acts, and as actually recorded natures on and off the Wethersfield Police Department. Put me in quotes with Mendez, older Mendez brother. Fake words with him. My town's police chief, a whole bunch of other Wethersfield police. Also, his brother with them, interbranch, on and off New Britain Superior Court through time. A whole bunch of people tied to him. People tied to predicate acts, roles, and uses of the sense and sensibilities of science teachers I had. And see, they don't even realize that. Because everyone's speaking through other people. Criminally. Same people pretending they can speak for the good crimes. We have the FBI as clear as day, simultaneously, insidiously, pretending they have the right to lie, where they don't and never had the right to lie. When do you think our organized crime countering bodies had the credibility to speak for positive? Had the credibility to speak for identity? So we have people that come and pretend passions and emotions. So we have investigators and investigations, people that speak about other people's behavior so they can make opinions. As trained, but criminally foreign influence, delusions raw. That's why it's necessary to discern how each of the sciences are self-valuing criminally foreign influence premises treatments. Are self-valuing roles with everyone speaking through others, including their insights with their roles, inter-campuses with overt criminal enterprises, and with their uses of all along roads and routes and highways, and spots at the end of highways. As the people involved with the database organized crime, method, /S, as clear as day, simultaneously, insidiously. You guys need to respond to mandated law so you can watch how it is clear as day. You need to respond for Connecticut interbranch, forging and switching names with their locations while simultaneously stacking falsified police reports. Attaching me and other kids and their family members through time to fake locations, fake words, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people. Like this Joshua Julian and this Anthony Yagman. Recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the principal sex offenders campus. About a mile from me, and with people on the corners of that. Involved, I don't know them as victims with the sense and sensibilities where they got that brought in with the people with the various departments at Central Connecticut State University. As victims, with their identities also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by dozens of people from my town, interbranch, intercampuses involved with the lie progressions, involved with sequence shifts, and predicate acts with the databases, tied to the predicate acts roles, connected to the predicate acts with AT&T stewardships, family members associated with the judges and their family members, like recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. They used the Spada family as victims, but in other words, they're trying to start fights with me. Also, with that's tied to the house with a Phil Cololo as one of the cousins who's involved with pretending just because his neighbor lives next to me that I know him. All exceptions, I barely know of him. Barely know him. I mean, never had a conversation with him. I explained the one exception, which is right around the corner from the Samuel Dix house with Anthony Agman. in that clique with this Joshua Julian, who's also with interbranch Facebook pages involved with child sex offenders, with other natures of organized crime, and further on the principal sex offenders campus, then and now. As people also rolls then and now with a daring with East Hartford, who's also no pigmented skin, black. Because these are also black and white female judges. Recorded predicate acts rolls with a Justin Klavinskis. I don't know, has ever met his brother, I barely know him. And with Joshua Stryker, Joshua Julian, further involved with simultaneously connected intercities, predicate acts and predicate acts rolls on and off Trinity College, on and off Central Connecticut State University. The same people simultaneously pretending other used Facebook to switch names and forge names. Use on-off campuses connected confessions and demonstrations and sequence shift roles, threats, tortures worse than just identity theft frauds. And war crime, worse than war crimes. These are the same people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in the context /S and since with the investigators of it, involved with predicate acts roles with it. They also have a Scalora family that Saudis and that some people from Central Connecticut State University and from other countries recorded, confessed, and demonstrated and confirmed rolls with the houses on my area, on my street in Weathersfield, with predicate acts on and off Central Connecticut State University, and rolls with the predicate acts with the child sex offenders cliques associated with the Scalora family. There's a Subby Scalora, there's a Claudia Scalora. They have people associated with West Farms Mall, with the policing of, and people that communicate with the policing of, like, Toys R Us before it closed. People associated with the networks on and off their locations, relevant to how they keep the human fact-sheet nature either employed to roles, breaching screen, pretending other, breaching tool, weapons, pretending other, or you don't get a job. And so they're preventing use the evidence to be used. How jobs, while you had slavery overt, simultaneous, from being spoken about. Simultaneously, that prevents everyone's slavery from being spoken about. And simultaneously, everyone's forced to pretend that it was only on black people. Simultaneously, that prevents the slavery of our founding parents, where if there's slavery with the overall identity of the grounds stewards, where everyone's forced roles or there's nothing we can do about it. You're sick. You're a victim. And nature's going to keep demonstrating negative value nature progressions, action, natures you have to respond to, because it's going to keep demonstrating it. So this is not like debugging. This is like debugging. But this uses what is perfect already. So offensively, we have each of the sciences with theory and with sequence shift self-value. That's recorded clear as day. That is also recorded and employed by a simultaneous, what is simultaneously sustained, force sustained. Now, the Britain Superior Court recorded, confessed, and demonstrated they forged names and switched names, and rules with lying to the parents of kids through time, attaching the kids to fake locations on and off the campuses, fake words, while they are simultaneously pretending to be patriots and pretending to be criminals and pretending to be, misprision, fake sides of correlation nature, identity theft roles, frauds, worse than racketeering, and the sequence shifts. So it's relevant now because they're preventing me free speech because they've been stacking databases through time with what you could see. If the same people denying it will not deny it when you ask them correctly. This shows how sense and sensibilities were being used then and now, with men and women sickly distinctly cowards, as people that will give anything, sacrifice their life to pretend other, because that's all they know how to counter. Because the same method that sickly distinctly keeps killers shooting people, not just because people are stacked upon each other, which that was designed for. Even if you change the way they're stacked upon each other. This is an identity of relationship to the ground, and the space is identity of space/existence is identity of relationship to itself. Space and so the ancients must have referred to teach logic. They would teach about the first circuit, most logically, demonstrably, as the heartbeat of Allah. For example, they probably referred to it as part of the identity of the body of space, which is greater than it and while less than it, as what is value greater than it, both being less than it and being greater than it. Because it is three identities of volume, three semi-connected semi-natures. And what makes more from inside that, though? So where those three semi-natures can't be its complete nature, so it can't make more of it. They can be value when we're inside its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that, which took manifest what is inherent, active, and progressive, that is bonded. The same way the cell nucleus, cell body, and cell wall are bonded. But its identity is perfect value progression. All exceptions in exception nature are in demonstration of it. So it can only come from part of space's complete body of volume. A concentrated one. See, now Earth, with no criminal foreign influences, too long had our one species, criminally foreign influence systems, identities of and as an identity of negative value nature progression, self-value since semi-ancient times, that couldn't defend itself and afford, discerned all that is capable to correlation nature about and as what is proper answer to where algebra evolved from. Didn't evolve from one guy. Preservation evolved through one guy. And preservation was not completed. Not one completed true. Boxings to you, boxings. I tell you things alone. Come home. So, we'll examine, for example, sorting and logic, and the Trinity, which is inseparable from every yes and no. And